another episode of Epic Geek Out, the only show on the internet where Tony Stark's real superpower is his witty banter. I'm your host, Chad.
I'm your host, Rob, and today we're going to be giving a couple comic book reviews of Guardians of the Galaxy and Secret Avengers.
As always, you can check us out over at Twitter at Epic Geek Out. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/epicgeekout, and also check out the website, www.epicgeekout.com. Let's get into our review of some comics.
So today we're diving back into some comics. We got #1 issue of Guardians of the Galaxy, the brand new storyline from that. And then also the Secret Avengers. We read the first 3 issues of that series. That one's written by Nick Spencer, Guardians of the Galaxy by the famous Brian Michael Bendis. We'll start with the Secret Avengers. The plotline of this seems to take place prior to the movies, while Black Widow and Hawkeye are part of the Avengers, but they use a little weird device where they are implanted with a memory.
Very, very comic booky device.
So they're implanted with like some memory, like nanotechnology, where they forget every mission, basically. And in the second issue, we start to learn about this group of mad scientists who seem to be going legitimate, but S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't convinced. So we kind of go on some adventures with them throughout. It seems like that will be kind of a recurring storyline through that. So what did you think of the first 3 issues of Secret Avengers?
So Secret Avengers, I was curious. I went to the comic book store and just said, hey, any suggestions? We really wanted to do some comics that, we're just starting out. And I'm like, Secret Avengers, okay, what is this? And, it's a secret. It's just like an offshoot, and that has no effect on the world because they're just going to forget anyway. And I know these are comic books, but it was so hard to just to stomach that explanation that any fun I had in the comic was ruined because it had no bearing on the Marvel universe or anything like that. Also, so Nick Fury's in it. The one thing that I absolutely loved was Agent Coulson is in this book, and I thought that was so great. When I, first, there was a surprise for me, so when I first saw that, I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I enjoy his character. I'm excited to see him in the new Marvel TV show S.H.I.E.L.D. So, I was excited for that. But after that, there was really not much left to be excited for. All the villains weren't really people that I knew. Maybe they were in other stories, but no one I had any familiarity with. I think the Hawkeye standalone comic, it is so much stronger and had such a better art style to it, and instead of diluting it with some of the other characters, I'll much rather read that than sticking with this. So, I just couldn't buy into the whole trope of, oh, we're going to forget all this. But come on this adventure with us, but then we're forgetting. So I really, I didn't enjoy that aspect.
I think that kind of mechanism lends itself to the comic book. I see what they're going for. Unfortunately, it is a little unnerving because it is kind of lowers the stakes a little bit more. I didn't hate it as much, but it just didn't have any strong villains in the first 3 issues to kind of keep me like really invested in the storyline. I really did like the art style. I liked it better than the Guardians of the Galaxy, actually. I really like there's some really funny humor that they had in there. On the helicarrier, they had like 197 days since our last crash. I thought that was really clever.
And when they reference kind of how many Avengers teams there are, like, oh, this is a new team I'm joining. I thought that was a little, meta and
I think that
enjoyable.
was Guardians, because I think Tony Stark said that.
But and then Hawkeye, I think, said it too.
Yeah, Hawkeye.
In
this one, Hawkeye said talked about Nick Fury and being different, which I thought was really funny because Nick Fury is traditionally white, so it was funny when he's like, "Wait, this is like whatever." So and they're like, "Just don't ask questions. It's just the way it is." So I thought that was kind of meta, like you said. I mean, it was just definitely kind of out of it and refreshing a little bit. But overall, kind of a little bit of a weaker storyline. I think they could have gone with something stronger to keep you invested. But again, it is an offshoot, and it's the characters that really aren't that famous in the Avengers. So it's Hawkeye and Black Widow, and Nick Fury as an agent, Agent Coulson. So it's less of like the superhero-iness of superheroes and more like the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And you know.
But then they didn't get into any of that, the fact that they were humans, like the Hawkeye comic did, where, you know, it showed him in a really his life, him like that, and him even referencing that fact. So, you know, they didn't get into that enough for me.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. So the stark contrast of that pretty much is Guardians of the Galaxy, which is very fantastical, over the top. The first issue of this, the storyline, takes place in space, obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy, and how Earth is kind of off limits to be protected by, you know, otherworldly creatures, and that opens up Earth to attack, and how the Guardians are coming to the rescue, so to speak. Tony Stark's in the first episode, or first issue, rather, and so this is a lot more interesting because it's not characters we're necessarily all that familiar with. I know we read a couple other comics where they're included, but what did you think of this one?
I thought it was I mean, again, judging a comic series on a first issue is impossible.
Like judging a pilot.
just like judging a pilot. But out of the first issues that I've been reading, this one set up the stakes so well for what was to come, and also adding Iron Man, a familiar face at this point, to the Guardians, I think is perfect. So people who aren't familiar, you know, there's Tony Stark being Tony Stark. That's great. But then his interaction with these other characters, which you're going to get to know, and I think really get to love. I am excited. I am sticking with this series. I think it's great. I'm enjoying all of the characters that are in it. I like the father-son relationship that is getting set up, and I think that can have a great payoff with Star-Lord. This is getting me so excited for the movie, which is, you know, going to be directed by James Gunn. Chris Pratt from Parks and Rec is playing Star-Lord, and I think he's going to really embody the role. And I am so excited to learn more about these characters. I'm definitely sticking with it, and I really enjoyed it, and how they set up how the world, you know, the stuff that's going to attack Earth, and I really enjoyed it. So I think you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, I agree. I think they could have expanded a little bit more on the other characters, because there's a lot of Star-Lord in this intro to him, and he's a great character. I mean, he's basically Han Solo, which is awesome, with superpowers, so that's cool. But, you know, some of the other side characters really get like one panel, so it's kind of disappointing for a first issue, but they packed a lot in here, so I think that hopefully will be expanded upon. But for someone new to the characters, it didn't really shed a lot of light on the other characters, ancillary, like other
they kind of gave like just little things of Gamora, the, you know,
little
the deadliest woman assassin,
catchphrase,
so.
But overall, really interesting how grounded it was. Like they were able to ground it in stakes that you cared about. So a lot of where I think even the other comic, Secret Avengers, the stakes were so like out there in like this crazy group of super scientists that like I couldn't relate to that as much as just simply attacking Earth and protecting Earth. So they're definitely bringing it in a little bit more, making it a little bit more within the sort of movie universe. Like this is a plot I could see them replicating, because it's really just the Avengers movie, but with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
And they mentioned like Thanos, and, you know, how you guys went against him and things like that. So yeah, I think they set it up so well, and I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, I think all strong characters, you know, and like you said, you have Tony Stark in there, so that's always good. Yeah, I'm excited for what comes next, because I think it definitely set up a good first issue of possibilities. So and like a lot of stuff could happen from here. And
this just gets me so excited for the movie, which I'm pumped for.
I'm still nervous.
And the casting is like coming out of that. Michael Rooker just got cast in the movie. So yeah, I'm excited.
I'm definitely nervous, but we'll see. Because it's definitely going to be hard to make a tree person look convincing on TV. So we'll see. So those are two comics that you should check out right now. Out in comic stores everywhere. Again, one cool thing that I want to mention is Marvel Now is like their kind of New 52 take on it. But if you see something with Marvel Now, it means it's a storyline that's happening right now, obviously, hence the title. Yeah. So it's really easy, a lot easier to kind of jump in there and pick up a storyline where it's started off, unlike when we first started getting into comics where we're totally confused. But check it out. If you see anything with Marvel Now, it means it's kind of a current storyline. So check it out. So that's it for another episode of Epic Geek Out, but before we let you go, we want to give some thanks and share some geek knowledge and fun stuff with you. Rob, what's your thanks today?
So I would like to thank comic extraordinaire Patton Oswalt. Today, Patton Oswalt is great. Check out his stand-up specials on Netflix if you haven't already, from King of Queens, and he is a a nerd who also happens to be a comic, and when he ties in his nerdiness to his comedy, it's undeniably utterly fantastic. So today I just happened to stumble upon 2 YouTube videos featuring him. One is from Funny or Die, and it has him playing the Penguin, and it's kind of him talking to Batman, you know, about death and stuff, and it was absolutely cracking me up. And then I saw he's also going to be on Parks and Recreation this week, which I mentioned earlier in the video, but he's going to be on there, and he does a filibuster at the town council meeting, and he improvised this whole filibuster where he ties in, where he starts talking about the new Star Wars movie. It's 8 minutes long or so, and it had me laughing out loud, and it was completely improvised, and I don't think they're using it for the show, I'm not sure, but it's on YouTube. You know, add the link to this video. It is beyond funny and definitely worth checking out. So if you haven't checked out his comedy before and you enjoy our show, I'm sure you're going to enjoy him. So check it out.
I actually had a different thanks, but you made me think of one that's really good from Funny or Die, funny enough. I, Steve just came out yesterday when you're watching this 2 days ago. But it's a really interesting thing because it's the first time Funny or Die has done a really long kind of narrative. It's an 80-minute long movie about Steve Jobs' life, and it stars Justin Long from I'm a Mac, I'm a PC, and other things, obviously. And Hurley from Lost as Steve Wozniak. And I have not watched the whole thing yet. I've watched probably about a half hour of it. And funny enough, or not funny enough, I don't know, it's not really a comedy. I mean, there's a little comedy bits, but nothing like overtly comical. I mean, the only really funny thing in it is the fact that he looks ridiculous with the beard on. But like, it's the legitimate story of a biography of Steve Jobs, and it's really interesting. I'm not quite sure what they were going for with that, beyond just being the first one to have a Steve Jobs thing out, because that was what they were saying, like, we're going to be the first one, because there's 2 movies coming out. But if you're at all a fan of Steve Jobs, or you're just interested, it's not all that accurate, but it's pretty close to, you know, the general storylines of what happened. So it's pretty interesting. It's called I, Steve. It's on Funny or Die.
So I guess they chose Die in this instance.
No, that's not true.
Oh, no, I didn't mean about to just, they weren't
too
funny.
Too soon. So that's it for this episode of Epic Geek Out, but make sure you check back next week. We have episodes every week for you. But thanks for watching, as always, and we'll see you next time.